Welcome to Living the Empowered Life podcast. I'm your host, Tamiko Pugh, best-selling author, life coach to purpose-driven women, and empowerment influencer, affectionately called by many the Empowering Diva. Each week, I'm bringing you inspirational conversations as well as actionable tips, tools, and strategies that move you forward in all areas of life. I believe that empowerment comes from within and can be achieved by honoring yourself, your values, and expressing your talents and gifts. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. Now let's jump into today's episode of Living the Empowered Life podcast. On today's episode of Living the Empowered Life podcast, I'll be chatting with Femininity Specialist Tia Woodley. At 46, Tia's fiance proposed to her on Christmas Eve, and she's soon to be Mrs. In 2018, after ending a very painful and toxic relationship, Tia spent 2 years on a dating hiatus that resulted in a transformational healing. During that time, she discovered something unique about femininity that she's passionate about sharing with other women who want to be in healthy, happy, and committed relationships. She's done the work to save you the time and heartache. She shares the blueprint that can help you avoid the mistakes she has made and fast track your journey from sad, lonely, and single over 40 to a happy, healthy, and committed relationship with a high-value man that leads to marriage. All right, everyone. So you have already heard her amazing bio and her introduction. And so we're going to go ahead and dive into our conversation with Tia Woodley, the Femininity Specialist. Hey, Tia, how are you?
Hi, Tamiko. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. I am really excited to dive into this conversation about everything that you're doing, some amazing things, really just helping women in the area of femininity. So before we get started, just tell us a little bit, because I know people are probably wondering, what is a femininity specialist?
Well, a femininity specialist includes a lot of things, but as it pertains to myself, Tia Woodley, I help women over 40 to be the woman masculine provider men choose to marry.
Ooh. All right. So women over 40. Okay. So tell me a little bit about that. So women over 40. And then when you say masculine men, can you kind of expect on that a little bit more?
Oh, of course. There are lots of men out here, but I believe and know in my heart that most women, especially grown women over 40, we're happier with a man who knows how to take the lead. He's masculine. He wants to provide. He wants to protect. He wants to make us happy. That's what masculine men, that's who they are, and that's what they do.
Yeah, and I love that, because at the end of the day, that's all we want is for them to take the lead. You know what I mean? And just kind of be the leader and kind of lead the family household. So
in a healthy way.
And definitely in a healthy way, right? Because it can definitely go left the wrong way.
Right.
Narcissism and things like that. So we're not talking about that, but we're talking about a masculine man that really knows how to take the lead.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. So awesome. So I'm over 40, and I can't imagine right now having to start over. But why do you think so many women are single in today's society?
Well, that is a loaded question. And, at any moment it can be a different answer. But I'm going to touch on 5 main reasons that I see very often. So I'm going to try to go through these very quickly so everybody can just kind of catch on. And hopefully the women listening, you guys can see yourself, if you're single, in one of these, and then figure out a slight adjustment you can make to change the trajectory of your relationship status. So number 1 is a lack of relationship experience. A lot of women, especially over 40, if they prioritize other things in life, they simply don't know how to be with the man. They don't know how to spark in a man who's interested in them his desire, which is to provide and protect them. The second thing I see a lot of in women I work with is fear. So as a result of fear of making a mistake, getting hurt or whatever, they're overthinking, and they, instead of having a strategy for just, mitigating relationship mistakes. And we'll probably get into that as well. But also not letting go of hurts and things from the past, past traumas and things like that that are not being dealt with. So they stay in that place of fear, and not letting go keeps them stuck and single.
Yes.
Yes. Another one is seeking perfection from another human being or from the man versus nurturing the perfectly imperfect union of two people who can support each other to their next levels and beyond. And the fourth thing is over dependence on advice from, the popular dating books and movies that everybody's been listening to for the last 20 plus years. Hence, still, I think I heard a few months back that 70% of women are projected to be single by the year 2030. And that's a scary thought.
Whoa.
Yes. And then the last one is just being in that masculine space. And a lot of times, women, we're choosing men based on, he's got to look this way, he should do this or he should do that. But historically, women have been a lot better off when we make a choice to be with a man based on other things that are not so superficial. So it's not to say that you should settle for someone that you don't like, but as a woman, our job is to determine, can this man take care of me? Is he going to listen to me? Is he going to do all those important things? And then when we start there, as opposed to what makes our private area tingle, actually connect with the man and fall in love with him over time. And then that ends up being a relationship that has longevity and where we actually get the things that we need from the relationship. So I know that was a mouthful, but those are some of the main reasons that women stay single.
No, this is good, and I absolutely agree with each one of these. When you say the lack of relationship experience, at first I was like, oh, what does she mean by that? We're over 40, we've had relationships, but it actually makes sense, right? And then that fear of getting hurt and then not letting go of past trauma. I will say that, and I'm gonna just give a personal experience that I went through because my first husband was abusive. He was narcissistic and all those things. And so going into a new relationship, although I had did the therapy, did the work, that past trauma would sneak up every now and then.
Absolutely.
And it was impacting the relationship I'm in. I'm like, I almost didn't get remarried because of that past trauma. So being able to let go of that. So I'm glad you mentioned it.
Absolutely. I can agree and relate, and I've had similar experiences, so it's definitely a serious thing. But to touch really quickly about being over 40 and assuming that we've had a lot of relationship experience, a lot of women over 40 do not have a lot of relationship experience, and they have no idea how to be with a man.
So that was some really great information, Tia. Thank you for sharing that. One of the questions I had for you is, why do you focus on single women who are over 40?
Good question. Well, I myself am over 40, and when I divorced back in 2017, I was exactly 40 years old. And that was a very, very tough time for me because I had to start over after 14 years of marriage. But I didn't really take the time to heal and kind of process everything that had happened prior to the divorce. So I immediately jumped into a toxic relationship, which, had some amazing, crazy highs and lows. But it got to a point where I just had to stop. And during that time, when I took a break for like 2 years from dating, I just I moved into this tiny little apartment, just me. I spent 2 years just kind of nurturing myself back to a healthy place. And because I was scared, like after the toxic relationship, I kind of just didn't know, like I wasn't feeling good about myself. And the people who were showing up I'm thinking like, what's wrong? So that's what made me stop, because I'm like, why am I attracting people who aren't good for me? So once I did the work, cleaned myself up, it was amazing. It was almost like magic, because now I have different kinds of men showing up. I'm well into my 40s. I realized how powerful that was to be in that position now that I'd healed myself, or I had gone through a healing transformation. I won't say healed myself, but took the time to work on myself. And women over 40, let me start there. So I'm really, really passionate about helping women over 40 to realize how powerful we are, even at our age, despite what society and social media says about older women not being attractive or not being desirable, because that's absolutely far from the case. Older women we're a lot more wise. We're more authentic in a lot of cases. We're more fully expressed. And it's easier for us once we've done the work and realize that power and have the confidence to go out into the dating scene to know that we're the ones who men actually want.
Absolutely. I am so glad that you said that because I know some fly and fierce and fabulous women who are over 40, such as yourself.
Thank you.
So I'm glad you cleared that up because people, they don't know where our 40 now is different from the old school 40. You know what I mean? So we are, I believe that we are authentic, just walking in our authentic power and being able to be attractive and just really being who you are supposed to be, as opposed to what society is saying that we're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying that's true. Yes.
Yes. And then it's like, society nowadays, and what I'm noticing, especially with our newer generations or women over 40 who've already been married and they're kind of reinventing their lives, I hear a lot of people say there's no benefit in marriage. Like, I don't want to remarry or I just don't want to be married. And so let's kind of talk about that a little bit. Like, what is the benefit of marriage in 2023?
You know what? That's a good question. And in a nutshell, the benefit of marriage in 2023 is the exact same that it was in 1923. Let me start there, okay? Now, the Surgeon General just released information in May, I believe it was, speaking on the epidemic of loneliness and isolation and what a public health crisis that is. So, just with that information alone, knowing that loneliness can lead to 29% increased risk of heart disease, 32% increased risk of stroke, 50% increased risk of developing dementia, and premature death chances increased by more than 60%. So that to me is enough to be like, hey, you know what? I need to prioritize being in a relationship. It's not to say that everybody has to be in a relationship or that everybody has to be married or that everybody who is single is actually lonely. But if this is now becoming a public health crisis, then we should definitely be prioritizing relationships and marriage just for the sake of longevity and having a healthier and happy life.
Absolutely. Wow. And you touched on loneliness and then some other things I didn't even know: heart disease, stroke, dementia. Like, this is really great information. So it does make it a public health crisis. Um, and the other thing I actually thought about was we're really not created to be alone. We are created to be a part of community and have relationship.
That is absolutely correct, which leads me to another information. I'm not sure if people are aware, but all humans have 6 basic needs. And guess what? Which one is at the top of the list? Love and connection. So it's a basic human need to have love and connection, to be with someone. That's why you have a lot of, dog moms and stuff like that. We all need to love someone. But if we can get a relationship with a real human, I think that would trump other avenues of seeking love and connection. And then the thing too is that, 70% of women earn $50,000 or less. Can you afford to be single? I'm like, we really need to be really serious about that. It's not magic. We have to make choices that are going to impact our lives, our retirement, and again, just our overall longevity and health.
Wow, that's good stuff. That's really good. And so, all right, so now we know why, you know, there is a benefit in marriage. We understand that. But what happens is what I'm noticing is that a lot of women are like, well, men are trash. They aren't, they're no good. So do you think that's true that most single men that are out there now are trash or not even worth it?
Man, no, listen. That's a good question too, but I'm laughing because I used to feel that way. But absolutely not. Men are not trash in general. But the ironic thing is, when I felt that men were trash, it was a direct correlation with how I was feeling about myself. So when I was feeling not good about Tia, then the guys that were showing up were not, they were trash. When I changed how I felt and loved and appreciated myself, and I learned how to show up to the right kinds of guys, it was amazing. It was, again, like magic. the type of men who showed up, the quality of men that showed up, it was complete 180-degree turn. There are plenty of great masculine provider men out here. Even though I'm off the market now, it's I guess it's just an aura of where I am and energetically. When I'm out, that's all I see. That's all I attract is masculine provider men. They're out there like in droves, like seriously.
Yes. Oh my gosh, this is good. I agree with you on that. And I think it's about piggybacking off of that. Like you are gonna attract what you put out in the atmosphere.
Correct.
So if I'm insecure and I'm having all these internal issues, that's what I'm, emitting in the atmosphere, and that's what I'm gonna attract. And I've always had friends say to me, people are always like, Tamiko, and I'm not bragging. I know you're not bragging because you said when you go out, in the community when you're doing stuff, that's what you attract. And I'm like, I'm married as well, but that's what I attract. I'm always attracting a masculine provider man. And people ask me all the time, like, what are you doing? Like, how are you attracting these? How are you attracting? How is it that you always attract someone that's masculine or they want to provide? And I'm like, it's what I'm putting in the atmosphere, I guess, because I know I can provide for myself. And, my confidence has increased since I've done the internal work. So I think it's about doing the internal work and really what you're putting out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's that, and also knowing when these men show up, you also knowing how to show up so you can keep their attention.
Yes, ma'am. Definitely got to keep their attention. Definitely. So, speaking of, single women and why women are single and, the amount of quality men that are out there, a lot of women are looking for marriage. So there are some women out there who want to remarry or want to marry over the age of 40. And Tia, I believe one of the things that you do is help women to achieve love and marriage. So how do you do that?
Fearless femininity is all about powerfully intermingling strength and vulnerability. So, what does that mean? It means being balanced in the way you communicate. Knowing, I help women to understand that, hey, when we show up and we're interacting with people, there's always going to be some bumps in the road, but our power is in the way we communicate. So, if, say, for example, something happens and you don't like it, that's not the time to go into your bag of, oh, this is just like what happened on the last time. Let me spaz out. Let me yell. Let me disappear. Let me play all these games to try to get a reaction. That's when we realize that instead, just be feminine, be soft, communicate in a way that is soft, yet powerful. And then you'll see that men will respond to you differently. So I teach women to take their power back through a softer approach. And then I'm going to give 2 tips here that help me out tremendously that I share with my clients. And it's 2 things that are very, very powerful because it helps you to avoid wasting time with the wrong people, which in most cases for women who are dating, if we waste too much time with the wrong person, it's going to keep you away from the right person. So 2 things I normally recommend is making a top 10 list as soon as possible. That list does not need to contain anything that has to do with money. It should be things like, for example, when I made my list back in 2019, it was I wanted someone who had integrity, who was a good communicator, who was kind. Those were a few things on my list. Typically, if you make a list and you're very intentional about it, the men that show up, they're automatically going to be the type of men who provide, because men who provide are men who have integrity. They're good communicators. Those same skills apply in their business life as well as with their relationships. So you have to know what things you're looking for. So once you make that top 10 list, the second thing is to have a dating journal and make it fun. That's another thing. Women just don't have fun when dating. So when I was dating the last time before I met my fiance, I had my list and then I had my journal. So every time I was on the phone with somebody or after I had a date with someone, I would summarize in writing, what we talked about, what questions I asked, what answers they gave, or just things that I just observed. And then I would be able to look at it on paper so I wouldn't forget anything. And I could compare that to my list and be like, you know what? When he did this or he said that, I recognize that he doesn't have this quality that's on my list. So I don't need to go out on another date with him. I don't need to waste any more time talking on the phone with him. I can kindly let him know, hey, Robert, it was so nice. Thank you so much for dinner. I don't really see that this is going to go anywhere, but I do wish you well on your journey. And then it kept me open. But when I help women too is when they start implementing the top 10 list in the dating journal. A lot of times, again, without the experience, sometimes they can say, well, oh, wait a minute, he did this and this is a deal breaker and I'm going to cut him off. And I can be like, no, wait a minute, wait. Let's not overthink that. Let's not, jump too quick. Let's work through that and make sure that is actually a deal breaker and not just you and your bag of old stuff that you haven't resolved yet. So
I'm glad you mentioned
yes.
I love this. So, all right, I'm going to kind of go back a little bit. So, because these are things that I've heard of making a list, but the dating journal I hadn't heard of. So making your top 10 list. I love that you said for you, it was integrity, being kind, being a good communicator. And I think those are also our values, right? So we value things like integrity and honesty and good communication. And one of the things I realized, even going through my healing journey, prior to my second marriage, I was dating guys whose values were not in alignment with mine. And so what I've realized and I'm, living the empowered life, there's 6 steps to living the empowered life or 6 principles. And principle number 2 is living life according to your values. And anything that we do in life is not in alignment with our values. It just doesn't work.
Right.
So when you said integrity and kind and good communicator, I'm like, those are values. And we have to make sure that the person we're dating, their values are in alignment with ours. So I love that. But this whole having a dating journal, I love it because I feel like I would call it probably like dating with intention. Like having a journal, you're intentional, you're not wasting time. So I love this. This is real good stuff, Tia.
Exactly. Oh, and one thing I do want to add too is that a key point that you said about identifying what is in alignment with your values, which ultimately means if you make a top 10 list, whatever you have on that list, you should also be those things as well.
Definitely. So we definitely have to be that. We have to be that thing that we're trying to attract, basically, at the end of the day.
Yes.
And so, Tia, you have a quiz that women can take that's going to tell, I was going to say us, but I'm already married. But it helps to discover what your biggest marriage blocker is. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how our listeners can actually take that quiz?
Yes. Please visit fearless-femininity.com and take the quiz. It's going to help you to determine what is blocking you from a healthy and happy committed relationship with a masculine provider man so that you can get what you want. In addition to the quiz, which only takes about like maybe 15 minutes or so to complete, you'll get instant access to my 30 Days to Wifey Material ebook, which outlines the exact steps that I took to go through my healing journey that allowed me to start attracting masculine, marriage-minded provider men. So you don't want to go through any more holidays, years and years of being single, especially at over 40 plus. You're tired of that merry-go-round and you're ready to get off and stop and get with a man, then definitely start with that quiz. It's going to help you out a lot.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I'll also make sure that once we share the broadcast, once we share your podcast, we'll add the links and everything so that they can easily access all that information.
Awesome.
Well, awesome. So, Tia, this has been a great conversation. Obviously, this is Living the Empowered Life podcast. And I think what you are doing is definitely helping women over 40, to live an empowered life through those relationships. And so it would be remiss if I didn't ask you what it means to you to live an empowered life. What does it mean to Tia to live an empowered life?
Okay. To live an empowered life means to keep the focus on self because, like Mel Robbins says, nobody is coming to save you. So it means knowing that when you make decisions from a place of self-appreciation, that decision becomes the best, not only for you, but for everyone involved. Living an empowered life also means to decide in each moment what is the best outcome that you seek and trusting yourself to make the choice and take the steps towards that outcome. And being okay to adjust when needed and seeing nothing as a failure, but lessons that make you get better and closer to your goals.
Yes, yes, I love that. So keeping the focus on yourself. And we have to understand that it's not selfish to do that because I used to think that it was.
Hmm.
Deciding in each moment what is the best outcome you seek. I think that's amazing and that it's okay to adjust. Sometimes it's okay to readjust and shift and pivot and things of that nature. So I love it. So Tia, do you have any last thoughts for the audience? Any last comments or a charge for the audience?
Take the quiz, ladies, but most importantly, have fun. Have a light energy about it. Have fun crossing people off the list. No, you don't have to kiss 1,000 frogs to meet one prince, but you definitely need to be able to identify the frogs and get rid of them quickly. But have fun with it.
I love it. I love it. Have fun with it. Tia, thank you so much for sharing all these amazing gems. We look forward to supporting all of the initiatives that you have coming up. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ladies, it's time to identify and live your life purpose. It's time to live life according to your values. It's time to set goals that move you forward in life and business. It's time to unleash your confidence. It's time to fearlessly walk in your authentic power. Ladies, it's time to live the empowered life.